Good morning, wonderful colleagues. Start my little timer. So today I just want to, in light of the research paper that we're all working on, and in light of meeting with Jen and Latrice, and Jen mentioning that this should be the focus for my internship, the students writing. As we see, they come from different middle schools, and their writing styles are very different. They're being taught writing very differently. And so this is why I wanted to spend a little time on this today. All right, so question. Looking at this is generally the writing process. In your opinion, is there anything missing that should be in this process? I mean, the wording may be different than what we're used to. We may use different wording for the most part. This is the rule of thumb for the writing process, but in your experience, is there something that should be added to this process?
Well, for the pre-writing, I know sometimes I refer to it as brainstorming first. So that way they can just have like a brain dump of ideas that are kind of going through their mind. I just feel like the pre-writing is like a step after.
Okay, so brainstorm before that, Drew?
I was also gonna add, I think that given whatever resources you have, I think there's two of us and we have a student teacher and then we have TAs. I think part of, I don't say it's a separate step, but I think it's a necessary component of all of these. I think it's like feedback along the way. So like giving like constant like looping through, like pre-writing, feedback, all right, finish my pre-writing, or continue my pre-writing, drafting and writing, get feedback along the way. So like, that's kind of like a constant thread.
A constant loop, right?
Yeah.
So we would add brainstorming up here, and then we would add a constant loop of feedback throughout the entire process. And we're not gonna spend a lot of time on the writing process because it's pretty much set in stone. And as teachers, we add different things as well. But I do wanna spend a little time on the sharing and responding part, which is why we have a star here, and also known as the peer editing part of the process. So we can go to the next slide, and we're gonna watch this video, and this is a demonstration of peer editing process by a combination of 3 students. And then we can come together and talk about what they did well and how we can show this to students. This is a potential video that we can show to students so that when we put them in peer editing workshops, they know what to do and they know how to peer edit well. So let's go ahead and play that.
Today we're going to watch Megan and Lauren review their friend Rebecca's paper about a little boy's Christmas. Let's get inside their heads to see what they're thinking as they read her paper. First, we'll go to Megan.
It was Christmas Day. Danny knew that from the moment he first opened his eyes. Eager seeing what Santa brought him. Wait, okay, this should be eager to see what Santa brought him. Little Danny tried to jump out of bed and fell to the ground and rushed downstairs in anticipation of all the toys he knew Santa would have left for him. Wow, okay, that's long. Okay, Danny had asked for a scooter, a Wii, a Guitar Hero, and a Spider-Man motorcycle. Some of this is kind of long and confusing, like this sentence right here. This sentence is really long, and I think she could add a lot more by putting in some descriptive adjectives, maybe right here, but you know, this is all just her writing, so I'll just leave it the way it is. She can change it if she wants to, or if not, it's fine.
Megan's not doing a very good job at responding to her peers' paper. She only focused on grammatical errors rather than organization and the overall effect of the paper. She thinks it's a little dry and unclear, but she's reserving criticism for fear of hurting her friend's feelings. So let's see how Lauren does.
It was Christmas Day. What kind of Christmas was it? Some descriptions could really make this come to life. Danny knew that from the moment he first opened his eyes. Eager to see what Santa brought him, little Danny tried to jump out of bed and fell to the ground and rushed downstairs in anticipation of all the toys he knew Santa would have left him. Okay, this is kind of long. First of all,
All right. See how Lauren addresses surface level grammar, but also attends to bigger issues like descriptions and organization? She just spent more time thinking of ways to help. And now it's time to listen to Megan and Lauren give their friend Rebecca some feedback.
So did you look at my paper? Yeah, I read it. I mean, there's just a couple of things, not much at all. Okay, this verb right here, this should be to see. It just doesn't sound right when you say eager to see what Santa brought him. So eager to see, that sounds a lot better. And then, yeah, well, I mean, this sentence is kind of long, but I mean, you know what you mean, so that's okay. Never mind, you really don't need to change anything. It was kind of long, but it's really okay. I didn't know what you meant right here, like with that, all that. So maybe just go back and look at that, you know. Okay, yeah. Oh, and down here you need quotation marks. Okay, yeah. Whenever someone's talking, yeah, you'll try to put quotation marks. But I mean, yeah, other than that's about it. So really, yeah.
Let's see. At the very beginning, when you talk about Christmas, I think it would really make it come to life if you told me what kind of Christmas it was. Are you talking about time periods? It was early on Christmas Day? Are you talking about it was an exciting Christmas? And give me some kind of descriptive word to make that, oh yeah, I don't know, more understandable. There's just a couple of grammatical things. This needs to be to see instead of eager seeing. Down at the very bottom, you missed some quotation marks, so I just drew those in for you. And a couple of times, you use the word and repetitively, right here, and then down here. So I changed this one to then, because I think it makes more sense to say jump out of bed and fell to the ground, then rushed downstairs, so that it's sequential. And then down here, down the stairs, he stopped abruptly because there was only one gift in the tree, not and. It seems kind of more cause and effect that way. Let's see. Fell to the ground. Why did he fall to the ground? Is he just in an awkward growing stage? Did he trip and fall? Is he nervous?
He tripped and fell.
But why? Well, tell me. Because if I'm reading it and I don't know why he fell to the ground, then I'm going to get stuck right there and go, why did he fall to the ground? Or why did he fall to the ground? So think about that. Also, this sentence at the very end here, I think it would work better way down here. It seems to make more sense to me. And then, just up here, Danny had asked for a scooter. You don't really need the had. Same thing with he just knew that, all that. You don't really need that first that. So that was all the stuff I found. What do you think?
Yeah, great. You've been very helpful. Thank you so much.
No problem. Anytime you need some help.
As we saw, Lauren gave a much more helpful peer response than Megan, in what she wrote and in her explanation to Rebecca. Her suggestions were very thorough, and she gave reasons to back them up. The next time you work with your classmates, remember to focus on the big picture.
So, in my experience, I'm not sure what your experience has been with peer editing workshops. Students are usually like the first demonstration. They're very big in their feedback. And I think this is a very important part of the writing process where students can really grow as writers if they are given the right skill sets to be productive in their peer editing workshops. We can go to the next slide. So I think something that we can do is give students some guidelines when they go into their peer editing workshops. Giving them an example of a peer edit visual, which is why we just watched the video. That is in the greatest one, but I do like that one. I have used that one. Give them an example of demonstration. You just put them in groups and say, look at each other's work. They don't know what they're looking for. But if you show them a good demonstration of what that looks like and what you want them to do, then they will have that visual. Give guidelines and guiding questions for students to follow. Call it a workshop or create stations. I recommend, I know with our setup right now that our unit, the way the units are set up, we don't have as much time to spend on this. But in the ideal perfect world, in my opinion, we're spending at least 2 days on peer editing workshops. For me, it's that important. And with the first day, you can pair students up. And the second day, you can create something like stations. You can have like a punctuation station here, a grammar station here, structure station here, and you can have students move around. When they get to a station, the people at that desk only focusing on that part of their paper. And lastly, create a feedback worksheet and checklist for students. I'm gonna pass this out to you all now. This is an example of the most recent peer edited response form that I've used. And it really, really helped. I mean, it really seemed to help students stay focused when they were in their peer editing workshops. And when I checked in with students and I asked, like, how was that? They said it was very productive. This caused them to stay focused on what are you looking at, what are you looking for while you're in these workshops, and what type of feedback can you give students? Are there any questions or feedback about this peer editing part?
Can I just say one thing from, looking at the video, one thing that I noticed, and I bring this up in my class a lot, is not to, like, you're talking about the text, not about the person. So if they could refrain from you know, wrote this, instead, you know, it says this,
Yes,
right?
that's a good one. I like that.
And like, that's what I do, cause it talked about hurting people's feelings and whatnot. So it's about the piece of writing, not necessarily like about the partner and myself, so.
Yeah, I like that, exactly, and a lot of students, they don't wanna hurt their peers' feelings, so prefacing it with that will be helpful for them. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, next slide. So as we close this chapter and go into the last part of this piece, this is just a quote by yours truly. And when I think about peer editing, this is what I think about. When we engage in peer editing, we are not trying to change what the author is saying, but rather trying to help them communicate that in the best way possible. So it's important for students to know we're not trying to say, oh, I don't like your argument here. That's not what we're trying to do. What is the author trying to say? Okay, let's help you communicate that in the best way possible. All right, so the next piece and the last piece of this PD is talking about as it relates to our research papers. You can go to the next slide. So, in addition to the writing process, for a research paper, there are additional steps that we need to take. Number one, making sure students understand the assignment. Because up to this point, they've done a narrative, they've done a thematic summary, and this is very different than what they've done so far. So causing students to understand, now we're getting into a completely different category of writing. Allow students to choose their research topic. They all are being presented with the same options. Conduct preliminary research. This is for the additional source that we're asking them to do outside of the text sets. Developing a claim/thesis statement. Creating an outline. This is when the graphic organizer comes into play. Teach paragraph structure, and then the writing process begins. The ones that I have a star by, to me, are the very, very important pieces here that I want to spend a little bit more time talking about. So first, let's talk about conducting preliminary research. So we need to give students guidelines for researching. It's one thing to say, okay, get additional source, but a lot of students, this is their first time really being told or asked to research the right way. And so we should give them guidelines for researching. Give students great research tips and techniques. Share with students what you normally do, what you have done. Share with them your research process and journey. Teach or review the difference between credible and unreliable sources. And give examples of sites that are not credible. For example, I have students every year ask, can I use Wikipedia? You cannot use Wikipedia. They love Wikipedia. And then explain to them why. I mean, as we all know, anyone can upload information, and so we can't use that for a research paper. But then you want to follow it up with sites that they can use, okay? They may branch out from that, but say you can use this because this is from a peer-reviewed article, a peer-reviewed journal, and so on and so forth. All right, the next point, developing a claim plus thesis statement. Now, I know we use claim in 9th grade, but I know this is probably something that has to come from the top up, so I'm not saying that we have to go in our classrooms and change this right now. But I think the earlier the better we can start getting them used to the thesis statement language will be beneficial for them, because as they move past 9th grade and beyond high school, they're gonna hear thesis statement. And so if we're thinking about that, thesis statement should consist of the 3 C's. It should be clear, concise, and complex, causing students to know that. Usually 1 or 2 sentences long, and it's usually, they'll learn later that they can break away from this, usually at the end of the introduction paragraph. Research shows that students who do homework, okay, so here's an example of a thesis statement, but also something I didn't put on here is the 3-point thesis statement. I think that if we all were able to come to an agreement and be on the same page, I'm not sure, does anyone teach a 3-point thesis statement to students?
I teach open thesis versus closed thesis, so this would be like a closed thesis, which
Okay.
is like a roadmap.
Okay.
So the idea that like, this is like, you have your first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph in your thesis statement.
Exactly.
Rather
Yes.
than like an open thesis, which has the more umbrella claim
Exactly.
that each paragraph links back to.
Exactly, so that's exactly where I'm going. So if we teach them to put their 3 main focal points in their thesis statement, this will be a roadmap and a guide for the rest of their paper. And using this in the past, the writing process goes so much easier. Because if we can get a strong thesis, the rest of the paper is kind of like a piece of cake. So we can go to the next slide. So, going back to our example, and I just made this up. This is not real. I didn't do any research on this. So research shows that students who do homework, form great study habits, are more organized, and are more likely to succeed. So we're going to take that first point and tell students to make that the focus of their first body paragraph. They're not going to focus on anything else in that first body paragraph but the first point from their thesis statement. And then the second, you can go to the next slide. The second one, and so on. And then lastly, the conclusion. So in doing that, we are teaching students that their thesis statement should be more complex, it should be concise, and it should be clear. And I think that's it. And here's some additional resources, and there's like one more I have to add to it, and I'm going to share this with everyone afterwards. Any questions? Thank you all for your time. I brought some donuts. Please help yourself. Thank you so much.